Lizzy. I'm an alcoholic. We've had a little bit of a wild break. There's been a lot going on with QR codes. We're going to take a moment. We're going to say the Serenity prayer. I'm going to get with God. If you want to, you can as well. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know this. Thank you all. Again, I'm Lizzy. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is January 29th of 2011. Am I the appropriate distance from this hot mic? Yeah, we're good? Okay, great. Love it. Excellent. I'm so grateful to be here. I want to thank Anne. I want to thank the conference organizers, my best friend Josephine for allowing me to share a stage with her today. And I really want to thank Becky and Hannah and Rachel who got me at the Orlando airport yesterday. Alcoholics Anonymous and the women of Alcoholics Anonymous are absolutely amazing. I'm going to start off by saying this. I had a really, really, really difficult week. I lost a pregnancy 5 days ago. I'm 40 years old. It was my first pregnancy. And thank you. That's not necessary. But I did not want to be here today. And I did not want to fly from New Jersey. And I did not want to do anything but sit in my bed and watch The Summer I Turned Pretty on Amazon. That's the only thing that I want to do. It's not even that I want to cry, I just want to be alone. And I got on a plane and I was greeted by Becky in the Orlando airport with a sign that said, "Bill sent me," which is hilarious. Hilarious. And they took me to Buc-ee's, and I've never been to Buc-ee's. And I met Bucky. And those three women carried me from isolation to fellowship and a willingness to be here with you all today. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Alcoholics Anonymous is really powerful. God is really good. That's what we're going to talk about today, the fifth step. And Josephine is my best friend of 19 years. And I just can't describe how crazy it is that we're doing this here together. My sobriety date is January 9th, 2011. So God willing, I'll celebrate 15 years in January. And I'm saying that because we have been best friends for 19 years and Josephine is celebrating, God willing, 20 years at the end of this year, and God willing, and I just really, really, really struggled to do what was asked of me and made myself really different than even the people that I loved the most who were getting this, and I suffered as a result of my unwillingness to accept God into my life, to admit defeat, to admit that I didn't just have a problem with alcohol, that I had alcoholism. That was absolutely not what I came here for. And so I had friends like Josephine, and Josephine had celebrated her 21st birthday sober, and her sponsor and our friends made a really big effort to give her a beautiful, appropriately sober 21st birthday, and I showed up in a relapse. Really, really inconsiderate of what was going on. And 17 years later, we stand here before you, talking about steps 4 and 5, right? A forgiven resentment, an amends made, and just a really powerful friendship. And, and that's the story of how I jumped in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous for the first 6 years that I was here. I never left. I loved this program from the moment that I walked in, but I never left. In A Vision for You on page 157, Bill and Dr. Bob go to visit the man who will be AA number 3 in the hospital. And they tell him about their alcoholism so that he'll relate, and they haven't told him about the solution yet. And he responds, "I don't see what good this will do. You fellows are somebody. I was once, but I'm a nobody now. 'From what you tell me, I know more than ever that I cannot stop.'" that was how I felt with friends who I was watching being taken on a spiritual experience, not only being relieved of the desire to drink, but being relieved of their alcoholism and their and changing and continuing to come to meetings and being like, I just don't get why I can't stop drinking. I'm doing exactly like you guys are doing. Like I just could not understand. For me, Alcoholics Anonymous was a beautiful place with happy people, people changing, people smiling and laughing. There were cute boys there also. But like I really got taken by the power of the fellowship from the moment I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. I was 18 years old when I came here. I had a depressive father and a depressive mother with a lot of trouble and like a lot of quiet chaos in my house, and I just like thought that like no one saw me and no one loved me, and I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and I'm like this little girl, and all of you women take me in and you take me to the diner and you let me talk about whatever I want and you tell me that you're gonna love me until I learn how to love myself, which I think is absolutely never a day in my life. But that's why I kept coming, and so we can't discount the fellowship. We can't discount any part of what gets us to keep coming here. Thank God I kept coming back for years on end, miserably, right? And thank God people were changing right in front of me. So I did a lot of bouncing in and out of AA because I wanted to do things my way and I wanted to do the things that suited me. And I was just such a know-it-all. And the idea of sponsorship, let's not even touch God yet. The idea of sponsorship, I mean, if my mom couldn't tell me what to do, you definitely were not going to. If you were female, you definitely were not going to tell me what to do, and just could not get sober. So let's say I think I'm about 21 or 22 years old. I'm back at, I've been convinced that I should go back to a rehab that I was originally sent to when I was 18 years old. They convinced me to go back to this rehab because when I had gone for the first time, it was like a luxury resort in Connecticut, and there was a pool and a gym, and like we walked outside, and that was where I went the first time that I ever tried to admit defeat over alcohol. And I'm 22. I've been on a journey with a new substance, which has taken me really into like, just a very, very icky place. And I'm paranoid, and I talk 1,000 miles a minute, and nothing I say makes sense. So when my parents bring me back to the luxury rehab, they say she can stay in the psych ward, and she will be inside, and she'll walk around the nurse's station if she wants to walk. And that's where I landed. And what's been I just recently started thinking about this, actually, that that day that my poor father brought me back to that rehab, that I have this like core memory of they're about to bring me in, and so I'm like allowed to smoke my last cigarette. The feeling of the last cigarette. I'm about to smoke my last cigarette. I'm 85 pounds soaking wet. I think I'm wearing like a see-through tank top with no bra. Like just ick. Just ick. And I'm leaning up against a wall smoking a cigarette. I have like one foot against the wall. And I hear this woman who looks like she's been drinking every day for about 76,000 years turn to my poor father and say, I wish I was as cool as your daughter. And I was like, you bet you do. Like I really thought that I was and that was my wildest dreams. That some woman who was also about to be locked up with me would tell me that they wish that they were as cool as me in that moment. That was as far as it got for me, And I've been thinking about that moment a lot because I just think about like ego, right? And that like not even ego that I thought that I was that great. Like I actually thought I was this small, but I was able to hit a point that was my pinnacle. And so that was it. Like whether I was going to drink or not, whether I was going to die or not, like that was as good as it was going to get. But in that time that I was in that facility, I got like a little bit more convinced to do a little bit more than I had prior, right? So, when they make you walk around the nurses' station so many times, like for so many days, you start to think that like you might have a problem with alcohol. Yeah. So they told me that when I left that facility, the same thing they tell you, right? They tell you to go home, they tell you to go to a meeting. But for the first time, somehow I got convinced that when I was going to go home, I was going to go to a women's meeting, which I had never done in years of coming in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, because there's no men there. I don't go there. They told me to go to a women's meeting, and they told me to look and listen for a woman that has what I want. Again, let's go back to who I am in this moment, okay? In the see-through tank top. So I'm 22 years old. I'm coming out of a couple of years of working in New York City nightlife, both sober and drunk. There are a few things that are important to me. They all are financially related or of some kind of gain that I can get, right? I have dollar signs in my eyes. I like women with nice bags. I like women with nice shoes. I like women with nice cars. I like women with nice men that I can take. That's what's interesting to me. That's what I want, right? So I come home from this rehab. I tell my dad he's got to drive me to the women's meeting. He's got to drop me off. We're in the parking lot. I check out the cars, right? Then we go inside and we sit in the circle and I start checking them out. I'm checking out the bags, checking out the hair, I'm checking out the nails, who's got what's going on, right? And because I'm looking, not listening, for someone who has what I want. And a woman opens her mouth, and I look to her, and she's sitting in a chair like she belongs there, and her shoulders are down. She's relaxed. She's comfortable with herself. She is so far from anything that I have ever felt or experienced in my body, my mind, and my soul. And suddenly, everything that I thought was sparkly that I was looking for was sparkly right in her, right? I did not like her bag. I did not like her shoes. I followed her to her car. Her car was a beater. She allowed me into her home a few days later, where I met her husband. I did not want him either. It was completely... God forgive me, she recently divorced that man, and I saw him in a meeting, and I was sharing this story, and he absolutely knew that I was talking about him. I did not want any of the things that I thought I wanted. All of the things that were sparkly and interesting to me were no longer sparkly for that moment. Serenity was sparkly. And I followed her, right? And I asked her to sponsor me, and I followed her. And I'm here to talk about the fifth step, and I'm going to talk about the fifth step, I promise. And I did a fifth step with her, but we're still in a time of my sobriety where I still think that I know it all. And the reason that I'm also just like saying that my sobriety journey doesn't start on the day of my last drink is because so many pivotal things happened to me in Alcoholics Anonymous before, God willing, the last time I picked up a drink. So many things that helped me to stay, right? First, it was the fellowship. Then it was trusting another woman with the inside of my mind, the inside of my heart, and believing that if I told her the truth, that not only was she not going to leave, but she was still going to love me at the end of the day, outside of the realm of anything that I had believed before, right? So far, so far. I thought I was going to be alone on this planet for the rest of my life. The only thing that I believe I know how to do is lie, right? Also, I like to be really good at things. I only do things that I'm really good at. I recently learned how to ride a bike for the first time at 40 years old. Because, it's so sweet. 40 years old and 14 years sober. Because I don't like to do things that I'm not good at. I'm really good at lying. Okay, so this is what really good at lying looks like. I learned this when I was very young. You guys can all probably relate. I bet you're all also very good at lying. When you want to lie really well to someone, first of all, you got to believe it, right? You got to believe what you're saying. You got to make really direct eye contact, right? And then you just got to repeat the same information over and over and over again from your heart. And just keep saying the same thing that you believe to be true. They have to believe you on the other side if you don't falter in that. That's the only way I know how to communicate by the age of 22, okay? So when I sit down with a sponsor and I have my first fifth step experience, was there any God in the room? Probably. Was I letting him in? Absolutely not. I did not believe that he was there. He was with me the whole time, right? But that first fifth step experience that I had was between me and my sponsor, and it still changed my life because it allowed me to believe that if I told you the truth, I could still look you in the eye and that you're not going to leave, and she sure didn't, right? So my whole experience for 2 years in that sponsorship relationship, right, was that I had an experience with the steps. I used to say it was an experience with the 12 steps. Sometimes I used to say it was a 12-step experience. It's not any of those things because there was no God involved, right? I'm just the actor, right? It's on page 73 of Into Action, in the fifth step. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. That is me without a drink, without God, more than anything, more than when I'm drinking. If I'm here in Alcoholics Anonymous and I'm doing 80%, or I'm doing 40%, and especially without God, but I desperately want to be better, and I desperately want to be like you, and I really want to be accepted, I'm going to act as if I believe what you guys believe. And we tell people to do that, and sometimes hold on until the miracle happens, right? Believe what I believe until you can believe. Sure, it works if there's any kind of openness in that person. It was not for me, right? So I'm just acting as if I'm doing some work with no God involved, which basically just involves like listing my resentments, not giving them to anyone, right? I'm making a couple of amends because, well, it makes my life easier, if I say sorry to my parents. I'm not going for anything really but acceptance, and I'm going to talk about going for freedom in a bit, and Josephine talked about going for freedom, but I was just really going for like getting everybody off my back, if I'm really honest, right, for 2 years by doing the thing the way you guys are doing it and performing it the way and getting accepted, right? That's what I want. So I got 2 years in this program with some kind of experience with the steps, acting as if. And Josephine talked about the warnings, right? There's a lot of warnings, and there's death threats in this book. That's a good one. I'm going to use it. There's death threats in this book, and all of them I thought I was better than, right? It literally says on page 72. I just read 73 about the actor. It says before that, if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking, right? And you better believe that I drank again. It says it right there in black and white. But I thought I didn't skip the step. I thought I told you my whole life story. I forgot, I just wanted to do it my way so badly. I still want to do everything my way so badly. So I get to about like almost 2 years in this program. I'm with my fellows. People are rocking and rolling. I'm acting, People are having spiritual, psychic changes. I'm like, yeah, me too. My perspective has totally changed on everything. You're free, me too, we're free. Yeah. And, I'm really involved in a home group because fellowship is fun. I'm the treasurer of that home group because now people trust me. And I go on a date with a guy in a bar. I absolutely do not think that I'm ever going to drink again. Not that day, not ever a day in my life. And I'm going to backtrack. I go on a date with a guy, on a first date with a guy in this bar. I'm in a relationship of 18 months with someone else. Okay, so I'm cheating. Like, I'm not like just like dating this guy. Like, I have a whole boyfriend at home. But I go on a first date with a guy at a bar, and I'm not going to drink even though I'm at the bar, and this man doesn't know that I am a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I tell you that I walked in that bar thinking that I had power, choice, and control to sit down and just talk to someone who was drinking, right? In the time that I walked from the door to the bar, I completely forgot what the definition of powerless was so greatly that I told myself that if I ordered a vodka soda and I took one sip, I would not get drunk. They were telling me every day for 6 years that the first drink gets you drunk. Like, I just thought that I was different and that I had enough knowledge, right? I didn't need God because I got all the knowledge that I needed by being read the big book by a woman who just wanted to offer so freely to me what was given to her, right? So I end up ordering vodka soda. I take one sip of alcohol. It's not enough to kill the absolutely devastating levels of guilt and shame. I always say that it was a vodka soda because anyone in this room can identify with the burn that burn in your chest. And like, when I think about shame, I think about that feeling specifically. And thank God we have a program where I get to sit with another woman and God and rid myself of shame. Because that one sip of alcohol brought so much guilt and shame upon me with 2 years of sobriety, whatever it was, that it turned into another drink and a blackout and substances that I had never done before in my life, and the bathroom with that guy who was not my boyfriend but sure did become one the next day because I needed a hostage that didn't know that I was sober, right? I had to go with him. I had no choices in the matter. I was left without any choice. And I went on a devastating run for a year because of the guilt and shame that comes within me when I think that I had a choice and I think I made the wrong one. I had no choice. I had absolutely no power, and I had no relationship with God. How lonely did I become in that moment? How lonely, right? You fellows are somebody I once was and I never will be again, right? That's what it feels like to pick up a drink in Alcoholics Anonymous. Painful, so painful. And in that run, I just like kept doing things that would bring on more shame because I love being shameful and I love hating myself because then I can drink more, and then when I drink, I get more shame, and then I do it again. And it's like, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy that gets me to where I want to be, where I think I want to be, right? It's like this horrible cycle. Shame, drink, shame, drink, shame, drink, shame, drink. One of those things that I'll share with you is that I was the treasurer of my home group, right? And I kept the treasury in the trunk of my car. And I was still going to meetings and drinking for quite a bit of time. And, this guy that I'm now dating, the guy from the bar, we need to get what we need to get through the night. And he said, and he still doesn't know that I was ever a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he says, we need money. I have money. I have money in the trunk of my car. Yeah, gasp. It's really horrible. Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life. It saved all of your lives. It's really horrible. It's really shameful. We've all done really bad things. Don't gasp that hard. Oh my God. I'm sharing my truth. I took the treasury from my women's meeting, right, where I met the woman who tried to save my life because someone tried to save hers. And I took all that money and I just handed it over to that man, and we went to a motel and we blew through it all in one night, and then I never said anything about it again. I just kept drinking over it every day because I knew that Alcoholics Anonymous was here for me and that I was making every single choice against being here because my problem is with alcohol, not with alcoholism. So in January of 2011, I wind up calling my sponsor, and being like, so I'm drinking. She's like, I know. We know. And she offers to take me to a meeting. And what I want to say about that day, because we got to get involved in God here, right, is when did I start to feel God, and when did I say, it's okay to say that I'm feeling God, right? And in that year of shame spiral, like a lot of stuff happened. I overdosed, I got pulled over, I got a charge, my parents kicked me out, people cornered me, like lots of stuff happened over the course of that year in which I could have made the decision to come on back to Alcoholics Anonymous. And January 28th, which was the day of my last drink, right? None of those things happened. I just woke up in the morning and wanted to live more than I wanted to die for the first time in a really long time. And so I called my sponsor and I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Like, that's the power of God. I don't need crash bolts of lightning. I don't need disaster. The biggest level of pain that I can cause is within my heart and soul. I took myself as far down a shame spiral as I possibly could go in that moment. And it was enough for my ears to open and my soul to hear God say, come back to Alcoholics Anonymous and try to do everything that is asked of you, and let's see if you don't stop drinking. And thank God that it was the decision that I made, and that's the proof that has been offered to me. I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous. I did everything that was asked of me. I accepted a God into my life. I had a real first step experience in which I admitted that alcohol was not the problem, alcoholism was, and that I was going to have to fight that every single day of my life. I opened my heart to the possibility that God is everything or God is nothing. I did a third step on my knees. I came to really understand what those words meant. Today with my sponsees, I ask them to translate every word of the third step prayer before they go home that day so that they have an understanding better than what those words are. So I can let them go and pray and hope that they are feeling something in their soul that isn't just wordy words, right? And then I'm back at step 4, and then I'm back at step 5. A fifth step with God and a woman that you trust can be one of the most life-altering experiences, right? And I'm not saying that fireworks have to go off, and I'm not saying that that I felt like God was holding my hand or whatever it was. I'm just saying that that no human power can take away my shame. So if I really want to stop drinking, just telling another human being my deepest, darkest secrets is probably not going to be enough. They can love me, and she loved me, and she didn't leave, and I told her I took that treasury. She laughed. She said, okay, we'll clean it up in a couple steps. I told her that I took money out of her purse when she went to the bathroom in the Cheesecake Factory. She said, okay, we'll get there in a couple of steps. She could ease me. I really did that. The Cheesecake Factory. I remember it might have been Grand Lux Cafe, if I'm being honest. They're owned by the same people. It's okay. It's the same. It's the same bad fast food chain. Yeah, she said that we can deal with that in a little bit, right? And she can tell me that she loves me, but people have been telling me that they love me my whole life. It's not enough to convince me that my shame does not want me dead, that my behaviors, drunk or sober, do not leave me deserving of death or a life in which the highest compliment is, I wish I was as cool as your daughter, right? That's where I go with shame. So by bringing God into my fifth step, right, I get to get these promises. Fifth step promises we have here. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Come on. I used to tell a lot of stories. When I used to speak, I really used to always talk about Josephine and her experiences with God when we were like young in sobriety, and how, thank God, there's an appendix called the spiritual experience that tells me that I don't have to have like bushes light up outside my house to tell me that God is with me, because it made me feel really different, you know, because I didn't have those experiences. But I was free from a lot of this like self-prophesizing beliefs that I had had since the day I could think for myself. And that was spiritual experience enough for me. I told the truth. Not only did you not tell me that I deserved to die, but I didn't feel like I deserved to die. That's spiritual experience for me. Still is, right? Still is. Tragedy, keep walking, spiritual experience. Anything beyond my wildest dreams, right? Like when I drank because I found everything about living to be intolerable. I had some stuff going on at home, like it was iffy. It wasn't so loving. You know, I had a little bit of sexual assault go on in my preteens. Like stuff was icky, but intolerable is like getting out of bed. Intolerable is having a conversation with another kid at school. Like the basic stuff, intolerable, right? Because I was born with overwhelming guilt and shame, like beyond. So a spiritual experience for me is literally feeling like I can carry on a day without thinking about how much I deserve to punish myself. That's when I accepted God in my life, right? It happened in that fifth step. It happened when I told the truth, when I looked someone else in the eye, and when I believed that God was listening. I just had to believe. If you've seen God in your fifth step, that's really cool. I don't know. I didn't say he wasn't there. I didn't see him visually, right? But I believed he was there. And that changed my life. It changed the total trajectory of my sobriety. It might sound really simple. Allowing God into my sobriety changed the trajectory of my sobriety. Sure. But it really, really did, because I was able to do years with you all, pretending I'm like you without God. But when I'm doing days and months and then years with God, and I'm experiencing my life in this program, there's nothing like it. You know, there's nothing like it. And I'm someone, like, I'm an alcoholic that, like, I like a lot of data. It says it in the book. Logic is good. Don't tell me you don't need it. I needed to prove to myself that if I did one thing and not all the other things, I drank again. If I did a couple of things, I drank again. If I did it all 100%, right, every single day to the best of my ability, and allowed my life to be led by a higher power who I trusted to love me no matter what I did the day before, I don't drink again under any circumstances. Under any circumstances, and I'm going to talk about that too. I did a number of fifth steps in my sobriety. I had a couple of sponsors in the first 10 years of my sobriety. So I had my sparkly sponsor for a bit. And then I moved on to another sponsor. And just before about 6 months before the pandemic, I moved on to another sponsor. And when we were in the pandemic, we were going through the work together, and mainly virtually. So I ended up doing a fifth step with her virtually. And this was in my 10th year. And we did a fear inventory together that really just leveled me up in my trust. I think I had done fear inventories. I went through awakenings. I did it as Josephine outlined, right? Something about this specific fear inventory really just shifted my trust that no matter what, I was going to be okay. I knew that I was accepted and I was walking with God, all that I'm saying. But there remained in me this I got reservations, not necessarily reservations about drinking, reservations about living. What can I get through? What can I get through, sober or drunk? Early, just before the pandemic, we lost someone who was important to us, and it was one of the first major losses in my sobriety, and I watched people who were very, very close to that person walk through it. And so when I did this fear inventory that I wrote and shared it with my sponsor, one of the things that I really talked a lot about was, can I cope with losing people that I love? And I wrote specifically about specific people. And I wrote about my friends, and I wrote about my parents, and I just it was the first time that I ever really considered it. It's really wild. It was really the first time in my sobriety that I considered, are there losses that I cannot walk through? And we brought God in, right? We brought God in when I shared that fear inventory. That fear inventory was not about shame. It was about my finite belief systems of what I can walk through on my own, and accepting the possibility that an infinite God could carry me through absolutely anything that could happen in my life. Just a possibility. I didn't even finish it certain of that. So that was in 2020. And in November of 2021, in my 10th year of sobriety, my older brother was killed in a small plane crash on 11/11 of 21. He was my best friend. He was my only sibling. He was absolutely everything. And he was the one person that I did not write on that fear inventory. We don't talk a lot about sibling grief and young sibling grief. It is an assumed finite belief that that person will be with you until the end of time. That's a finite belief that I had. And my world was absolutely rocked and demolished, and I absolutely did not remember that I wrote a fear inventory 6 months before about loss. I just was demolished, and I wasn't just demolished, I was self-centered to my core, and I only believed in the power of my finite self. And thank God that Alcoholics Anonymous just kept coming around and reminding me to just try one more day. Just get through one more day. The day after he passed away, I shared on a burning desire in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I hadn't done that in 10 years. I don't even know if I'd done that. I don't know if I'd humbled myself like that ever. But I really wanted to drink that day. I really thought that it was my only option. So I shared about it. And I just let Alcoholics Anonymous carry me over and over and over again, day after day. Big things, small things, all the things. Thankfully, I was in a relationship with a member of Alcoholics Anonymous too, and he was in my home. And so when they had to go back to their own lives, come on, he was there also, right? And so when I was putting out of my mind that God is always in my living room, not just in a fifth step, not just when I am asking for him, he's always there. There actually was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous that was always there. The sponsor that I had at the time, in the months after that I lost my brother Glenn, was extremely patient with my relationship with God, thankfully. Because I really, prior to November 11th of 2021, was like at this paramount relationship with my God that I would tell anybody that would listen about. Like, I wanted to tell you about my big, beautiful God, the big, beautiful God, the big, beautiful life that my big, beautiful God had given me. I walk hand in hand with my higher power. He is my Savior. I'll tell you, I would tell you as much as you would let me listen. And as soon as I lost my brother, I was also grieving my relationship with my higher power. I made a decision. He didn't exist. There was no possible way. There was such unexplicable calamity had happened, so he must not exist. And I would call my sponsor and I would talk about grieving my relationship with my higher power. And she just kept saying to me, "Are you angry?" And I would say yes. And then she would say, "Well, if you're angry, I think you still believe." And she brought to me this concept, right, that like really what it's about is not always being in this like, "Oh, I love you, God," communication. It's about being in communication. So if I'm calling upon my higher power because I'm pissed off, I'm still calling upon my higher power. It is better to be angry than to not believe. For this alcoholic, I'm going to tell you why. The communication never ended between me and my higher power. And to bring it back to the fifth step, I'll just say I had, before Glenn died, I had 3 sponsees writing fourth steps. And they finished them. And they wanted to schedule fifth steps with me. And I would call my sponsor and anyone that would listen and be like, there's 2 problems here. One is that I don't think that I have a relationship with God, so I'm not sure that he's going to be there for these girls. And 2 is that I am so self-centered that me and my pain are the only things that I can think about 24 hours a day, and ain't nobody going to tell me I don't deserve to be that way right now. She said, try to listen and let their God into your living room. And I listened to 3 fifth steps in the 3 months after he died. And it doesn't matter what I heard of them. It just matters that we did it. It just matters that I let someone else's God in when I wasn't sure if mine was there. It matters that I kept talking to mine no matter what I said. Communication matters. That's why I said that I asked my sponsees to translate the 3rd step prayer. I have sponsees from many walks of life. I don't care if they get in their car, they look up at the ceiling of their car and they say, "Yo, what up, God?" I don't care how you communicate with your God. I only care that you keep doing it absolutely no matter what. 6 months after my brother passed, that beautiful man that lived in my home who helped me through that time asked me to marry him. He was a faithful member of Alcoholics Anonymous. He loved this program. And there was hope again in the horizon. And 2 months later, he was diagnosed with incurable terminal stage 4 cancer of the pelvis. He was 36 when he was diagnosed. And I became his full-time caregiver that day. He lived and suffered every day for 16 months. He died on his 38th birthday, 2 years and 4 days after my brother. I realize that I'm far from the 5th step, but I'm not. Because I remained faithful, because I continued to communicate with a sponsor and with a higher power, angry or not, cursing or not, I was able to walk through the great honor of my life, which was to hold the hand of a man who was dying bravely in Alcoholics Anonymous. I already knew that I could walk through my biggest fear. I had already addressed it. I had already addressed it before I lost my brother, right? I addressed it in a 5th step with a sponsor. She could hold me accountable for as many days as she wanted to. What mattered was that I shared it with a God. And then I kept God. I kept God there. In the smallest bit, in the biggest bit, angry, cursing, crying, whatever it was, I kept God there. God was in my living room, and God stayed in my living room for 2 years and 4 days. And he stayed, and he stayed, and he stayed, and he stayed. And I remained sober, right? And I miscarried a baby a few days ago. And God was in my living room. I can be angry, but I can still believe. I might even consider myself happy, joyous, and free today. I don't know. I think that 2 things can be true at once. I do. I had so much fun at Buc-ee's yesterday with Becky. Alcoholics Anonymous, my relationship with God, this fellowship, doing step work with another alcoholic when it hurts me. Those are the things that give me the wings that I think that I don't have, right? My infinite self. If you think that there are things that you cannot walk through, drunk or sober, if you think there are things that you cannot walk through sober that you will absolutely have to pick up a drink for, I urge you to share them with another woman here, and please with your higher power. If you can do it quickly, don't write a whole inventory, just share it. This stuff is about communication, right? I learned that in step 5. Up here in my head, bad, very tight, very infinite, very finite, the belief systems are, and loud. Convince myself of anything, right? Out of my mouth, in prayer. I don't believe that there's anything that you all can't do. I also just want to say that as a sponsor, hearing a 5th step is a privilege and a responsibility that I'm grateful to have. I also heard 3 5th steps after Mike died. I can't. The scheduling of my step work with my sponsees is not ideal. Or these conferences. Is it odd or is it God? I don't know. It's a responsibility, right? I love all my sponsees. We all love our sponsees. I always, when any woman comes to Alcoholics Anonymous, my sponsee or not, and is expressing a desire to not drink, I hope that I can have some kind of impact on it, even though I know that it is in God's hands and absolutely not mine. But I like to have like a little bit to do with it. And like, and the fifth step like is kind of my opportunity, right? Like it is my responsibility in that moment to try to uncover some of the defects that are driving some of these behaviors. If someone is new and doesn't know how to do that, right? It's like my little moment of like, okay, I can use my experience here. So it's a privilege and it's a responsibility. We're literally participating in a life or death errand for another human, ideally one we've grown to care about. And you know, it's funny because like the fifth step, I think sometimes like gets this like fluffy, especially with women. It's like, oh, we're gonna do a fifth step. I'm gonna wrap you in a cozy blanket and give you tea, and we're gonna talk about your life story, and I'm gonna love. It's a life-saving mission. It's serious business. If I don't think that someone is going to go meditate for an hour by themselves, you will find them in my guest room with whatever food they need. Let's go. This stuff is serious. I'm gonna leave you with my favorite note in my big book, which is actually on I have it written on the last page of How It Works. So it's in between 4 and 5, before we launch into action, right? And it says, when I am centered in my inventory, I am more centered on what's going on in my life. When I am not centered in my inventory, I am not centered on what is going on in my life. If you are not experiencing your inventory on paper, you will experience it in your life. This is true during the inventory process and afterwards. We don't write inventory just to find out about ourselves. We write inventory to face and to be free of the things in ourself which are blocking us from God, ourselves, and others. If you are sitting here tonight and the greatest goal that you can think of for being here is to stop drinking, I urge you to stay. I urge you to listen. I urge you to do everything that you hear. I urge you to ask for help. I urge you to let God in. All of these things, I'm sure you can get there. You can stop drinking. I also urge you to open your minds a little bit and to stay here for freedom. Please. We come here for our drinking. If we stay here, if we really open our minds, if we let God and another member of Alcoholics Anonymous in, you might just get free. And I don't even know what that means for me, but I'm going to keep going there. I'm here for my freedom. Thank you guys all so very much.